Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a really unsettling scenario, something that happened recently in the Netherlands.
Right, a place you often think of as, well, quite protective of civil liberties.
Exactly. So imagine this. It's early June 2025. SWAT teams, specialized units, they're coming down on these small, quiet Dutch villages.
Not exactly major crime hubs.
No. And they're not going after hardened criminals. They're targeting apparently peaceful people, some in their 50s, 60s. Neighbors describe them as quiet, friendly.
But the response was massive, like counterterrorism level force.
It raises the immediate question. Why deploy SWAT teams against, seemingly ordinary older people? This whole dramatic event is our way into a deeper subject today.
We're looking at surveillance systems, immigration policies, and how dissent is handled, all playing out right now in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and our mission here, based on the material you sent, that analysis of surveillance and immigration, plus that article, The Unnoticed Dictatorship, which really sparked your concern. Our mission is to unpack that, pull out the key insights, try to verify the claims, connect some dots, and really explore what it all implies.
And that central concern you have, it's a big one.
It is. Could the systems built to track and deport undocumented people, could they be turned around? Used against people who just disagree with the government?
Or oppose certain policies, maybe medical mandates, or even just share memes that are critical.
Right. It taps into that wider anxiety, doesn't it? About freedom shrinking, maybe profits coming first, even whispers of a deep state.
So let's tackle that head on, the potential for these systems to be repurposed.
Okay, so what's the situation right now? Is there evidence?
Well, what's fascinating, or maybe concerning, is that as of now, July 4th, 2025, there's no clear, direct proof that immigration surveillance systems specifically are being used to track political dissenters in the Netherlands.
Okay, no direct evidence linking those specific systems.
Right, but, and this is crucial, we need to look beyond just that direct link. History shows us that powerful surveillance tools, once they exist, well, their use can evolve.
So, even if the immigration tech isn't the tool right now, are there other examples, past instances or vulnerabilities in Dutch surveillance that show this kind of potential for mission creep?
Absolutely, that's exactly the point. If we look at surveillance history there, beyond just immigration, a pattern emerges. Take the Series system.
System risk indication.
Yeah. It was designed to catch welfare fraud. It worked by combining data from all sorts of places to build risk profiles.
Sounds efficient, maybe.
On the surface. But the key thing is, a Dutch court ruled it illegal back in February 2020, said it violated human rights.
Why? How?
Because it unfairly targeted low-income people and migrant communities. It's a textbook example of how these tools, even if they start with okay intentions, can end up being used against marginalized groups. The UN Human Rights Office even called them out on it in 2019.
Okay, so Syria is one example of overreach. Anything else?
Predictive policing. The Dutch police experimented with algorithms trying to predict where crimes might happen.
Like Minority Report, kind of?
Sort of, yeah. But Amnesty International put out a report in 2020. We sense trouble, raising huge alarms.
What were the concerns?
Big risks of mass surveillance, ethnic profiling, basically serious threats to human rights. They called for an end to those projects.
So what did these examples tell us then? They're not directly immigration, but...
They show that surveillance tech, no matter the initial justification, has this potential to be misused. The underlying structure for collecting data, once it's built, can easily drift way beyond its original scope.
Leading to overreach, human rights issues. It makes you question any powerful surveillance system, right? How do you keep it in check?
Precisely. Which brings us back to those arrests in early June. That context of past overreach makes them seem even more significant.
Yeah, SWAT teams in quiet villages, targeting older, seemingly harmless people. It definitely sets off alarm bells.
And the narrative that followed was really stark. The media widely painted these individuals as sovereigns.
Sovereigns, meaning what exactly? Like extremists?
That was the framing. Extremists, terrorists, plotting to overthrow the government. Reports claimed weapons, chemicals, drugs, lots of cash were found.
Okay, that sounds serious.
But then you have the insider accounts. According to people closer to the situation, what was actually found? Things like leftover New Year's fireworks.
Fireworks?
Yeah, a few €100, a bottle of thinner, some hydrochloric acid stuff you might find in a garage.
Quite a difference from weapons and drugs.
A huge difference. And they were held in complete confinement, no contact with the outside world.
Wow. And one of the people arrested was Arno van Kessel. He's not just some random guy, is he?
Not at all. He's a top lawyer there. known for being critical during the COVID period. He actually became internationally known for filing a major lawsuit back on July 14th, 2023.
A lawsuit against who?
Against the state of the Netherlands, specifically naming Mark Rutte, who was PM then, plus Hugo de Jonge, Sigrid Kaag, Wopke Hoekstra, major political figures. And also virologists Marion Koopmans, Jaap van Dissel, head of their Public Health Institute, Raviem Agniskant, and even Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, and Bill Gates.
That's a massive list. What was the lawsuit about?
The core claim was that the accused knowingly pushed unsafe vaccines and deliberately misled the public about the safety and effectiveness of the COVID shots.
A huge accusation against very powerful people and institutions.
Exactly. And here's the kicker, the really crucial timing detail you mentioned.
The start date for the lawsuit.
Yes. It was scheduled to begin on July 9th, 2025. Just days after Van Kessel and the others were arrested in these dramatic raids.
That timing is hard to ignore.
It really is. If you connect those dots, it strongly suggests, well, at least raises the possibility of an effort to silence a major critic and derail a legal challenge hitting very high places.
And the sovereign label. You mentioned the media used it. What does that generally mean? Are they actually violent extremists?
Well, the term sovereign citizen usually refers to people who believe they're exempt from certain laws or government authority, often based on their own interpretation of law. While the ideology is anti-government, it doesn't automatically mean violent intent. Many just seek autonomy, self-governance, not necessarily violent overthrow. Labeling them as terrorists might be misleading or convenient depending on the narrative you want to push.
So this whole incident, the arrest, the timing, the framing, while it's not directly using immigration tech, it feeds right back into that core concern you brought up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It fuels those anxieties about government overreach, about potentially suppressing dissent when powerful interests are challenged.
Does this fit into a wider picture in the Netherlands? What's the political climate like around control and immigration?
Well, there's definitely been a shift towards stricter immigration policies. We saw reports last year, October 2024, about bringing back border checks, tightening asylum rules.
And limits on workers and students, too.
Yeah, proposals in September 2024 to cut back on labor migration, international students. It all points towards a greater focus on control, on limiting who comes in.
And politically.
Migration has become highly politicized. You have the rise of figures like Geert Wilders and his Party for Freedom, the PVV, reducing asylum and immigration central issues.
Didn't the government collapse over this recently?
It did just last month, June 2025. Collapsed specifically over disagreements on immigration policy. That shows how incredibly contentious it is.
So you've got this very tense environment.
Exactly. And in that kind of volatile atmosphere, the potential for surveillance to expand, maybe without as much scrutiny, it definitely grows.
Okay, so given that climate and the history with Syria and predictive policing, what about the legal side? Are there strong enough checks and balances?
Legally, Dutch immigration laws themselves, like the 2021 Civil Integration Act, are more about integration rules, language tests, that sort of thing. Not explicitly about mass surveillance of immigrants for tracking.
But are there broader surveillance laws?
Oh, yes. There's the proposed Dragnet bill, which has been discussed since around 2017. It's controversial because it potentially allows very broad interception of communications, hacking devices, casting a really wide net.
A dragnet, literally.
Right. Now, technically, these laws have to comply with European human rights standards, but there are serious concerns about whether they're truly proportional, how wide their reach actually is.
Which brings us back to that deep state idea you mentioned at the start.
Yeah.
Maybe deep state isn't the right term, but...
But the pattern of actions, these laws, the recent arrests, they do raise legitimate questions, don't they, about the potential for dissent to be suppressed when powerful people or narratives get challenged. It's about seeing the structures and pressures that exist.
So let's try to summarize where we've landed.
Okay, the bottom line seems to be no concrete proof right now that immigration systems are targeting dissenters. But the potential for misuse is definitely real. We see it in past examples like CRI, predictive policing tools getting misapplied.
And the current political trends towards stricter controls.
Yes, plus the really concerning arrests of Van Kessel and the others right before his major lawsuit. It all points to a potential for government overreach and silencing critical voices.
So for you listening, what does all this mean? What can be done?
Well, our recommendations focus on vigilance and action. First, demanding transparency. Real, robust oversight for any surveillance system to make sure it meets human rights standards.
Like supporting legal challenges.
Exactly. Support challenges that push back against misuse, like the case that struck down Sierra. That shows it's possible.
And staying informed seems critical.
Absolutely. Keep a close eye on immigration policies, how they're actually put into practice, especially given the current political shifts and these high-profile arrests. Vigilance isn't just a good idea. It feels necessary right now.
It leads to a final, maybe uncomfortable thought to leave you with. In this world that's so connected, so data-driven, where do we actually draw the line?
Between national security, keeping people safe, and those fundamental rights, privacy, the right to disagree, to dissent.
And when the tools of surveillance get more powerful, more hidden, how do we as individuals actually make sure there's accountability?
What concrete steps can you take in your own community to help protect civil liberties and demand that oversight? Something to really think about.